Good morning, friends. Namaste. We will begin our Sutra class with our invocation. Yastyaktva rupamadyam prabhavati jagataha anekadha anugrahaya prakshina klesha rashihi vishama vishadharaha aneka vaktra subhogi sarvajnana prasutihi bhujaga parikaraha pritaye yasya nityam devo hishaha savo vyat sita vimalatanuho yogado yogayuktaha yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarotam pravaram muninam Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi abahu purushakaram shankhachakrasidharinam sahasrashirasam shvetam pranamami patanjalim shrimate anantaya nagarajaya namo namaha Patanjala mahabhashya charaka pratisamskritaihi manovakaya doshanam hartre ahipataye namaha Bhashyakrit sutrakrit chapi nirmalantam surupinam dhyataram shripatir nityam patanjalim namamyaham Om. So friends, we are in the second chapter of the Yogasutras of Patanjali, and last week we discussed about the sutra that defines what is called avidya, the first klesha. And today we will go to the sixth sutra of the second chapter that is trying to describe us the second klesha, that is called Asmita. Drig darshana shaktyoho ekatmata iva asmita. Patanjali has presented that we have 5 kleshas, which means 5 afflictions that hurt us. And the first one is the giant one, that is called avidya. And last week we discussed that avidya has many different meanings in yoga philosophy as well as in Vedanta philosophy, etc. And we are mostly concerned with the meaning of avidya in yoga philosophy, that is the lack of knowledge of the self. That is, when we do not have self-realization, we are in avidya. Now, what happens when we are not having self-realization? There is obviously an existence of a state in which we are operating. We are operating with a state that exists, that is not necessarily a realized state. Now, that is becoming our friend, because we carry that for a long time. For example, I often remember this gentleman when I remember the Sutra of Asmita. My father used to visit a restaurant called the Woodlands Hotel from the 1960s. And every Sunday he would go there, and as children he would take us there, and we would go there every Sunday. And there were a few waiters there who were there for long term, and we became very familiar with them. They knew my father even before we were born, and then we were born and we were taken there. And then they knew us when we had children of our own, my sister, my brother, myself, and we had our children. They knew our children. So there were one or two people who were long timers who were always there, and we always used to meet them, and they knew, and they would, if one of us did not go, they would always inquire us and things like that. Now, what happened is, at one point, one of the gentlemen retired because he came of age to retire, and he retired, and we didn't see him in the restaurant anymore. Now, what happened is, at a particular time I was walking down the street, and suddenly one man approached me, and he was so happy to see me, and he smiled at me, and he asked me how I was, and how my father was, and how my mother was, and how my child was, and things like that, with so much familiarity, but I had no idea who he was, because I had no way I could recognize who he was. And I left that interaction with a feeling that, okay, I've just talked to somebody who knows so much about me, but I don't know who the hell he is. And when I came back to my house, suddenly it realized on me that this gentleman was the person who retired from the Woodlands Hotel. Now, why did I not recognize him? Why did I not recognize him? Very simple. For about 25 to 30 years, I had seen him only in the Woodlands Hotel, where he was working as a waiter with a particular uniform. It was the same uniform that he was wearing for a long time, which became his identity, that he was a waiter of this restaurant, that he would wear it with very great pride because it's a very well-known restaurant. It's a legendary place in Chennai. And I could not recognize him on the street because he was wearing normal clothes. So in my mind, I could not put the normal clothes with the face together and create the impression of who he was. Now, this is what happens to our structure when there is not the clarity, which we don't have usually, when there is not the self-realized state. There has to exist another state through which we are operating. We are not operating just because we don't have self-realization. We are operating on a daily basis. Now, we are operating under certain kind of identifications. If we are not the self, but we are functioning every day as somebody, we are given some identity which may or may not be true, but that identity is what is re-established every day, both from outside and from ourselves. People identify us like that, and we identify ourselves like that. I respond to the name Kausthub. I respond to the citizenship of India. I respond to the gender male. I respond to an occupation yoga teacher. There are certain identifications that are projected on me both by people outside as well as myself. If somebody screams out another name like Ananda, I will not respond. Maybe my friend Ananda will respond, but not me. But I will respond to my name Kausthub. Somebody calls me by that name, I will respond. If somebody calls me, hey woman, I may not respond. But if somebody calls, hey man, I may respond, thinking, okay, maybe he's talking about me, because that is another identity. So we have a package of identities that we kind of create or is created for us, that we start carrying, and that becomes kind of like our reality with which we are functioning. We start assuming that that is real. We start assuming that that is the real self. And that is what Patanjali says, Drik darshana shaktyoho ekatmata iva asmita. Asmita is defined as that state where there is a confusion between what is called the self and what is called the prakruti. Yoga and Sankhya philosophy talk about the idea that there is two parts that make us. One is called Purusha, one is called Prakriti. Purusha is the Drik Shakti, the observer, the one that has the power of observation. Darshana Shakti is the one that is helping us observe. The one that is helping us observe. Purusha is the observer. I give a simple metaphor. Some of us, we wear glasses. I don't need glasses to speak to you, but if I have to read a letter, I need some glasses. I wear a glass. Now the glass is helping me read a document. So the glass is a medium that is assisting me in perception. Is the glass the perceiver? Is the glass the perceiver? The glass is not the perceiver. The perceiver is the instrument that is able to see, not the instrument that is assisting us to see. So the glass is merely a tool that is helping somebody, me, to perceive. Now when you project this further, some of us, we see through the eyes. The eyes are not the seer. The eyes are like the glass of our system. Now please remember, the word I use is the perceiver. Perception is not only through the eyes. We have ears to hear. Hearing is also a perception. Smelling is also a perception. Feeling is also a perception. How do we feel? Skin. Both externally and internally. The body feels inside also. When you eat some spicy food, the stomach tells you you have had spicy food. The intestine tells you you have spicy food. The tongue tells you have spicy food. So the skin is everywhere, both outside and inside. Now all these are only instruments of perception. They are not the perceiver. The same with the mind. Thoughts are perceived through the mind for somebody else. So that's why the observer is what is called Drik Shakti, that is the perceiver, Purusha. The tool that helps us to perceive, that is Prakriti. Now because they are always together, at some point there is a confusion that develops between the two. There is a confusion that develops between the two, where one is taking predominance as the perceiver, even though it is not. Because there is not the realization of who is the perceiver. If you don't know who is watching, then you will assume that what is helping you to watch is the one that is watching. So that is the state of asmita that is presented. It's a state of confusion, ekatmata. It feels as if it is one, but it is not one. That's why Acharya Krishnamacharya says this idea about the oneness. Yatha ushnikritam agnina jalam iti. Yatha ushnikritam jalam agnina iti. There is water. You boil the water. Now when you boil the water, what happens? The water takes the quality of the fire. So you pour boiling water on your skin, what will it do? It will burn you. Just like if you put fire in your skin, it will burn you. So the water takes the quality of the fire. But water is not fire. Fire is not water. It takes the quality of the fire and acts as if it is the fire. It burns you. It cooks vegetables and fruits. You can cook in hot water. If you put a vegetable or fruit in cold water, it won't cook. It will get wet. Maybe it will expand a little bit because it will absorb the water, but it will not cook. For that cooking function, fire is needed. In the old days, people cooked it on raw fire. Now we are putting it in water and we are firing. So the water takes the quality of fire and acts as a fire itself because it has got that quality. The same way, the body and the senses, it takes the quality of consciousness, takes the quality of Purusha and functions as if it is the Purusha, but it's not the Purusha. That's what Acharya Krishnamacharya says. It is a state of confusion where Purusha and Prakriti exist as if they are not different, but they are different. As if they are not different, but they are different. When you see a couple, a husband and wife, they may be very close. They may think very similarly. They may have similar lifestyle patterns, etc. But they are still not the same. They are different. You take twins, they look the same. And sometimes maybe they behave the same. But they are still not the same. They are different. And that's why Drik Shakti and Darshana Shakti, they are very close. They spend a lot of time together with each other. And therefore, one takes the quality of the other. The Prakriti takes the quality of the Purusha, and somehow it gets partial independence, or at least it feels it gets the partial independence. And as long as the real boss is not known, it starts to act as if it is the boss. It's like a very powerful secretary to a boss. When they are very close for a long time, sometimes the secretary starts thinking that she is the boss or he is the boss in the absence of the real boss. When the boss takes the back seat and is kind of wants to hide discreetly, the secretary thinks he or she is the boss and starts to dominate other people. That is what happens to our system. The body and the senses and the mind, that starts to dominate us as if that is the real self. And that is the state of Asmita. And that is the Klesa, because it eventually leads us to suffering, nothing else. Because it's almost like we are investing so much in something as the real self, but that is always changing, that is always transitioning from one form to the other. Think about it. We invest so much in our youthfulness and beauty. When we are young, Everybody is youthful, lot of energy, lot of vigor, and lot of attractive skin and all that. There is no wrinkles, there is no graying of the hair. Everything is working very well. We invest so much of our identity in that. Then suddenly you get older and suddenly you start seeing that the body is not the same way. All that investment is kind of gone to waste. Start not liking your own body, your own mind, etc. because the media is saying, oh, if you are healthy, you must have no wrinkles, no white hair, and nothing, you must be full of vitality. It's not the reality, because body will change. Our mind will change. When we are younger, our mind thinks one way. When we are in the middle age, our mind thinks one way. When we are older, the mind wants something else. So what we identify as our dreams when we are young is not the same as when we are older. So many things change. So many things change. And that's why what we have to do is not develop an attachment to this state of identifications which is not real. If we attach ourselves to this identification, we will only suffer. We will only suffer. If we think this body is the most important thing, it is important, but it is not the most important thing. We will develop suffering, because at some point we will start seeing that body will start having some problems, because the body is going to have manufacturing defects. After all, the human body is being created by human beings who are not perfect. So there will be some manufacturing defects that will come. It's not going to be perfect. So when we give a lot of importance to the identification that is not permanent and that is not even real, because in yoga and Vedic philosophy we say what is real, what is called Sat, is that which does not change. What is the truth? Truth does not change. The sun rises in the east. This is the truth. It does not change. The sun will always rise. It's not like if the sun sets, the sun will not rise again. The sun will rise. No matter what happens in the world today, whether who is president or not, whether the world has got happiness or not, whether India wins the World Cup or not, the sun will rise every day and set every day. This is the truth. It cannot change. Whereas we cannot say the same about ourselves. I will always be healthy. I will always be happy. I will always do this job. I will always do that job. It's not possible for us to say this. And that is why we suffer. That is why we suffer. And because we make investments based on this identity. When you look at many relationships today, whether it is a relationship to a partner, it's not based on self to the self. It's based on prakriti to prakriti. It's based on prakriti to prakriti. We talk about heterosexuality and homosexuality. Nobody's talking about the heart there. They're talking about the body, which is prakriti, with another body, which is prakriti. We define relationship in these terms, whether it is between one human or the other. Job, we are defining, we want this kind of a person for this job. The job is not with, heart connection. It's a profession. In profession, heart is usually removed. We have to behave according to rules. Then we are professionals. So we remove the light in the heart from these equations. So relationship, whether it's with friends, with family, with partners, with our job, are usually not based on self. It's based on prakriti. Asmita is responsible for this. Why we define every action through identification. The moment we are born, we are given an identity. Identity as a gender. Even before we are given a name, we are given a gender. Oh, you are male, you are female. That's an identity. Now that can be changed nowadays, but it's an identity. And the body is not permanent, it will change. We are given a name. Name can also be changed. You can change names nowadays very easily. Then when we grow up, we are identified as part of a family. That can also change. You can separate yourself from your family. You can get married into another family, change your family name. So all these identities are only temporary. And what eventually these identities do is they remove the joy in our life. That's why Acharya Krishnamacharya says, Asmita is defined as Anandam Smita na asti iti Asmita. The ego eventually removes the joy. We are not going to be happy when we are going to function based on identity with an identity. This is a very big problem. This is a very, very big problem. So many examples are there. So many examples are there. About 60, 70 years ago, there was only one country called India. And there were many families who said they were Indians. Suddenly, the government decided to divide it into two countries, India and Pakistan. Now, some families had to choose whether they were going to belong to India or they were going to belong to Pakistan. Now, this is an identity. It's not reality. Because that border is not existing for animals. When the animal crosses, it's not saying, I'm going from India to Pakistan, I'm going from Pakistan to India. It really does not exist. It's an imagination, what is called an accepted, imagined reality. We all agree that this is India, this is Pakistan. This is Germany, this is France. We all agree, but it's not real. Actually, it's an imagined reality. And that's why we give so much investment to that imagined reality. A few weeks ago, there was a cricket champions trophy finals, India and Pakistan. India loses, Pakistan wins, Indians are depressed, Pakistanis are happy. But it's not really real. 70 years, 80 years ago, there were no two countries, there was only one. That is why our joy is removed. Because we are not focusing on whether it is a good game of cricket. We are focusing on who's winning, who's losing. So that becomes the more important thing than whether there is a good game that is being played. That's why the joy is removed. The joy is removed. Same happens in relationships. Many people ask, which caste are you? Which caste are you? Which country you belong to? Which country you belong to? Which gender you belong to? Which gender you belong to? Nobody wants to say, are you happy? Is there a connection that you have with your partner? People forget that. People want to focus on all these other parameters. Is this convenient? Is this convenient? And that's why we have a problem, because it removes the joy. We put too many rules and regulations and identify ourselves with those rules and regulations or those definitions, and that becomes the problem. So many countries, so many relationships, so many friendships, so many things are based on this false reality of Asmita. That's why Acharya says, Asmita removes your joy. If you want to have joy, you have to remove your Asmita. You cannot have both. You cannot have both. As long as you have the ego that is dominant, that is operating, you will not have joy. Joy will be completely removed. Because whatever gives you happiness based on Asmita is only temporary. Okay, this year in Pakistan won, India lost. Maybe next year India will win, Pakistan will lose. So the joy will change. It's changing. It's not stable. So that's why Asmita is a very dangerous situation. Also because Asmita is a veil that we wear without realizing that it is a veil. We don't realize that all these are only identifications. We think that that is real. If somebody asks you, are you a man? I'm going to say, of course I am. But the man, masculinity, is only part of the prakruti, not the Purusha. The self has no gender. The self has no gender. Whether somebody is asking me, is your name Kausthub? I'd say, yes, it is. But it is only the name of my prakruti, not my consciousness. That has no name. So it's so important that we realize that the reason for suffering is because we assume that what is not real is real. And if we function based on that, we will have problems. This is really what is called fake news. This is really the fake news. When we think that our identities are real. So many times I say people, they say, oh, I am American, I have rights. Now, few hundred years ago, America did not exist in the way it is existing now. The same story as India and Pakistan. No, few hundred years ago, Pakistan did not exist. India did not exist as a separate country. It was just one. All these are Asmita. And that's why we get into trouble, because we function, we carry that, we are carrying that identity so much. When you look at the world, you're always looking at the world through those identities. When you go to the cinema, spontaneously, I go to the men's toilet, my wife goes to the woman's toilet. We look at the world through the identity. We don't look at it as a toilet. There's no difference actually. But why there is a man and there is a woman? There is no difference in reality. But we would like to give it a reality that actually does not exist. In the house, we don't have men toilet and woman toilet. In the house, there is only the same toilet for everybody. There is no gender in the toilet. And we create these illusions. And then when a man finds himself in the woman's toilet, or the woman finds herself in the men's toilet, there is problems. People get angry, people get agitated. And this is why the ananda, the joy is disappearing, because we create problem based on these veils that we have created, and we give so much power to the veil that it becomes so dominant that we don't even realize that we are functioning through this identity. We are really forgetting that identity. Same is happening in the yoga field. People say, I am Iyengar yogi, I am Ashtanga yogi, I am Shivananda yogi, I am hot yogi, I am cold yogi, I am now beer yogi. There's no more and more brands and identities coming. Nobody is focused on what the yoga is doing for them. People are more focused on how can we establish our identity as this yogi or that yogi. And then why even the identity that you are a yogi? First of all, we are humans. But even that is an identity. It is given a form. And then we want to separate ourselves. I am a yogi, you are not a yogi. I am a yogi because I am vegetarian and I wear strange clothes and I have got beard and malas and tattoos which are yogic. You are not a yogi because you are not a vegetarian. You are wearing pants and shirts. It's not possible. So we create these problems. That's why Acharya is saying that it is a sankirna state. Sankirna means a confusion. When you are confused, you are not clear. When you are clear, you are not confused. But you don't know you are confused when you are confused and operating on that confusion. Imagine you don't know that you are confused and you are operating on that confusion. That awareness is not there. But if you have an awareness, I am confused, you will search for clarity. But we don't search for that. We continue to operate on that confusion. That is an existential state. It's continuing every moment. We carry that Asmita. We carry that uniform that this man was wearing. We are carrying our uniforms. And sometimes what happens, we are wearing so many of these uniforms. Just think about it. If this man is wearing one shirt, which is the uniform of the hotel, it's okay. Suppose he wears a second shirt on top of that, a third shirt on top of that, a fourth shirt on top of that. How is his state going to be? He's going to be uncomfortable. He can't walk because it's going to be so tight. It's going to be so tight. The same thing happens to us. We have many identifications. You are male, you are Indian, you are yoga teacher, you are this, you are that, you are that. You belong to this family, you belong to this style of yoga, you belong to this state, you belong to that state, you belong to this language, you belong to that language. So imagine how many costumes we are wearing and how uncomfortable it's going to be. That's why we are suffocating when we operate from Asmita, because it's too tight. It's too tight. We have to release all these Asmitas and be free. That's why it's a very fascinating terminology that the yogis use. They call the state of liberation nirvana. Literally, nirvana means being naked. Now, it does not mean we have to remove the clothes. It's remove the metaphorically the identities we are wearing. Because these identities are like costumes that we wear, which we have to remove. Which we have to remove. And that is what is the concept called nirvana. It's not to walk around naked saying, oh, I am liberated, I don't need to wear clothes. No, we have to consider other people as well. We should not give dukkham to other people. So we have to be very conscious of that. This is also part of yama and niyama, not to cause suffering to others. So the concept of nirvana is much more of the removal of these identifications. And sometimes that is what we have to do to have the self-realization. A lot of people are searching for self-realization. They want to learn to become a realized person. My father always used to say, you cannot learn to become an enlightened person. You have to unlearn to become an enlightened person. Because enlightenment or kaivalyam or nirvana, all these words are basically removal of these illusions that we have created. It's removal of these illusions that we have created, which means we have to unlearn rather than learn. There are people who are so desperate to learn about enlightenment, they will not find it. The same idea is presented in Buddhist schools as well, where they say the Buddhist was seeking enlightenment, he didn't find it. He stopped seeking, he found it. That's why we must not become desperate to look for liberation. Rather, our work is to undo the patterns that we have already established. That's what Patanjali says in the first chapter also. Tajya samskaraha anya samskara pratibandhi tasyapi nirodhe sarva nirodhat nirbija samadhihi. We must reduce the patterns. In many ways he says that virama pratyaya abhyasa purvaha samskara sheshaha anyaha. Many occasions Patanjali is saying that when we want to progress in the path of yoga, it's not that we are learning more and more techniques and more ideas. It's actually to unlearn all those patterns that we have previously created. When we create a pattern, it is a learning process. We are training the body and the mind and emotions to act a certain way. We have to unlearn that. Then we feel free. That is the most critical idea in yoga. That is not to learn and seek information and knowledge as much as possible, but actually to unlearn. It's what Bhagavad Gita also says. There is karma and there is akarma. There is action and there is inaction. Inaction is not non-action. It is a reversal of actions that we have created. And this is very, very significant. So that is what is the concept of Asmita, where Asmita is presented as a confusion between the Purusha and Prakruti. We don't see them as separate. Purushaha Prakritihi na bhinna bhavaha. Just because they are very, very close, it does not mean they are the same. They are different. They are different. One is a vehicle, the other is the passenger. It's like, suppose I have a car for 20 years. It does not mean that I am the car or the car is me. The same way, Purusha is the passenger. Prakriti is the vehicle. It is a vehicle for action for the Purusha. So just because they are together through a long relationship, it does not mean they are the same. They are in a relationship for a particular purpose. Once that purpose is served, they will separate. It's very simple. Once that purpose is served, they will separate. That is what Patanjali is saying. That is what Vedanta school is also saying. So that is the essence of the sutra. Drik darshana shaktyoho ekatmata iva asmita. Asmita is defined as that state of confusion between Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha being the Drik Shakti, the one that has the capacity to perceive. Prakriti being Darshana Shakti, the one that is assisting in the perception process. So this is the sutra that is presented here by Patanjali. Drik Darshana Shaktyoho Ekatmata Iva Asmita. Thank you, friends. Namaste.